What's up, everybody? Jeff Greer here. Welcome back to another episode of Floyd Street's Finest, a Louisville men's basketball podcast, part of the Field of 68 Media Network. It's been a little bit since we had an episode, so I'm bringing you some fresh content. Big time getting ready for summer workouts. Individual and positional workouts start on Monday. I'm recording this on Sunday here, the week of June the 7th. In Louisville as the players arrived over Memorial Day weekend. Some fresh faces, some old faces, old familiar faces back. We've heard from Chris Mack in the last week, a couple of different radio interviews talking about Malik Williams easing back into things. He is healthy and going through the process of getting back up to speed on everything. But they, as Chris Mack said last week on the drive with Mark Ennis, talking about wanting Malik Williams to be available for Louisville in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, a reference, obviously, to being able to use him in February and March of the college basketball season. So not as concerned, I wouldn't think, right now about getting him going. Roosevelt Wheeler was also cleared, which is good news for Louisville after he's been dealing with a number of different injuries over the past couple of years of his high school career. But good to have depth at the center position. Probably the most intriguing position that Louisville has coming into the season because of those health issues, and also knowing that you have a guy in Jalen Withers and JJ Traynor who can help you in a smaller lineup maybe, or shift there as a backup, or play them together as a pair of big fours, smaller fives together, depending on how the lineup shakes out. It is probably, again, the most interesting grouping in this entire Louisville roster. I did want to point out a couple of other things before we get into my conversation with Ross McMains, the new Louisville assistant who has joined the staff. First and foremost, Chris Mack has said and maintained, and I still have been saying this both in my newsletter, jeffgreer.substack.com. If you want to subscribe to my weekly newsletter, it comes out every Thursday morning and tries to provide different insights into Louisville basketball, things I'm hearing around the program, more importantly, trying to explain what you're watching, which was difficult, I think, for Louisville fans this past season, but still interesting. I'm fascinated by just the goings on in the sport and the strategy behind things and what people are trying to accomplish and why things work and don't work. And that's why this conversation with Ross McMains today is so interesting. Is I'm interested to find out some of the principles and concepts that you can go find on the internet. Now, we had a radio user the other day text in, you guys don't know what you don't know anything about Ross McMains. Just Google his name. You can find like a bunch of things about him. It's not that hard. Use the internet. That's what it's for. You can go listen to a couple different podcasts. Shout out to Basketball Immersion, a website run by Chris Oliver, who had a fantastic podcast with Ross back in 2020 now, talking about the FIBA World Cup and the New Zealand national team, which Ross is still an assistant for, and some of the concepts that they use to try to make up for what is a talent gap. There's no question about it. New Zealand, one of those teams that punches above its weight on the international scene, with a lot of good international teams in addition to the U.S., Greece, teams like that are Spain, that are always tough to play against. So I'm fascinated by that aspect of this summer and what types of concepts and principles that McMains has used it with on the staffs that he's been on in the past, overseas, with some of the NBA and the G League stuff that he's done on a player development standpoint. And how does that mesh? We do get into that during the interview. How does that mesh with, obviously, guys who have bona fide ideas of their own? Obviously, Chris Mack has been doing this for a long time and has had some very successful offensive teams and defensive teams over the years at Xavier and at Louisville. They were efficient, quite efficient in his second year especially, but they've acknowledged that they need to mix things up a little bit after this past season. People don't believe me, and I know I keep saying this, I'm a broken record. Xavier played fast. They were one of the top tempo teams, according to Ken Pomeroy, in the country, especially when they were really good. They would play at a high level pace with a high adjusted tempo, a lot of more possessions well, a lot more in basketball terms, a handful more possessions than what we've seen from some of these Louisville squads. And that is, I think, why, as I was about to say earlier, I think they still would like to add another player. Because I think they need a little bit more playmaking juice. They've got some, but I think they could use one more drink stirring type playmaker, guard of some kind. We'll see if there's enough, if there's options available, if there's enough out there. It is late in the game. Teams still have another couple of weeks before the deadline for guys who can get the blanket eligibility for this coming season if they transfer. So if there is someone out there that Louisville wants to grab, they're going to have to get them soon. Obviously, they would be coming in late to summer workouts, but that's no different than a lot of other years where guys might not come until July, the second term of the summer sessions, whatever it is. Sometimes it just doesn't work like that. I do think that this offseason is so critical for so many different reasons. For obviously a lot of programs have big summers. There's no such thing as a not big summer for programs, but some programs are bringing back a lot of returning players, guys who have been in a system. They know what they're going to do. They know how they're going to play. A team like Syracuse, I'm thinking about right now, where they're bringing back the core of their team, or at least a big part of their team that was so good in the NCAA tournament last year. Adding a guy in Jimmy Boeheim, who is going to be a guy who knows what his dad wants to do, and pairing him with Buddy and some of the other Joe Girard. They know what they're going to do at Syracuse. So this offseason is about fitting some of these new additions into a veteran core and executing the way that they want to with a team that knows exactly what its identity is. Louisville is bringing back, and the reason why this is so important for Louisville this offseason, they're bringing back a lot of experienced players. They've added a couple of veteran college players in Noah Locke and Jared West in particular. Matt Cross does have a season, or at least a part of a season, a school year under his belt, but not quite as much experience, obviously, as West and Locke. But they're also bringing back Sam Williamson. Jalen Withers has been in the program 2+ years now. Malik Williams, obviously. The list is longer of guys on that end who know the program and know it well. So how do you mix the veteran group with some of the newcomers while also maybe tweaking some of the things that you do? The pack line is still going to be there for Louisville. They're still going to attack the offensive and defensive glass, you would think, similar ways, especially the defensive glass. I would expect there to be a lot of the same concepts that Chris Mack likes in his offensive side of things to be still used, mixed in with some of the tweaks that Ross McMains can bring to the table, and Cahill Fennell also bringing some different ideas, moving from the director of basketball ops into an assistant role. So it is a critical summer as Louisville edges towards year number 4 under Chris Mack, and a year that Chris has acknowledged it's got to be a good year. They expect higher things than what happened this past season, missing the tournament. Everything aside from this past season and all the different things that went on. So what better way to start the conversation this summer than to check back in with the coaching staff and hear where their heads are and see what types of things they're starting to look at. I wanted to introduce Ross McMains to people who might not know a whole lot about his background. We get into some of the things that are important to him on the offensive end as a coach in previous situations, and just things that he generally believes. And one of those things is operating quickly in a shot clock. We do get into the difference in the international versus the college shot clock, which I can't imagine the college game is going to be using the 30-second shot clock much longer, but I could be wrong on that. We also get into his background and all the places he's been, how he got into coaching, and just a bunch of other different things surrounding his career and Louisville as well. So interesting conversation. Just a reminder before we get to it, I know I say it every time we record a podcast. If you have not already, please leave a rating and review. It's a great way to get people to find our podcast. If they were to search college basketball or Louisville or whatever it is, we want our podcast to show up for them high up in the algorithm. So if you get that chance, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever, go in there, leave a rating and review. if you also would do me a favor, go follow the YouTube channel for Field of 68. There's a lot of good content on there, and they're not going to stop over the summertime. The last thing I will say, I'm just putting out a cattle call, so to speak. I've been really excited about a couple of the different sponsorship opportunities that have popped up that I'm digging into locally. But if you know someone or you are someone here in the Louisville area who or thinks might have a company that would speak to Louisville fans, and you're interested in possibly being a sponsorship, a partner with me here at Floyd Street's Finest and with the Field of 68, give us a shout. Find me on Twitter or Instagram at Jeff Greer, and let me know if you're interested. You can slide in the DMs. And we can advance the conversation from there. But I'm really excited to be back for a season number 2 and start here in the summertime. And what better time to grow the podcast than now? So Ross McMains is up first. I'm hoping to have the rest of the staff at some point throughout the summer. They're going to be busy these next 8 weeks or so with recruiting, summer workouts, all that stuff. But what better time to kind of slow down, talk about hoops a little bit, and get into what they're working on than now. Chris Mack hopefully will be the next guest or close to the next guest after these workouts get going. And like I said, I'd like to get the rest of the staff on at some point. Cahill Fennell and Taylor Barnett, they're not new, but the promotions. I think it's good for people to hear their stories and their backgrounds as well. Super interesting guys. All of them have great stories. So want to share all of that. Enough verbal vomit. Here's Ross McMains. All right, we are joined by new Louisville assistant coach Ross McMains, a well-traveled young fella. Ross, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this with me.
What's going on, Jeff? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. How are things going so far? I've been saying to people, and I think you've probably had plenty of these conversations. The players just arrived over Memorial Day weekend. They're doing their orientation and everything, getting used to being at Louisville before individuals and team practices start up for the summer. You're kind of in the same boat. You're also doing sort of an orientation of getting to Louisville, learning the city a little bit, learning the program, finding a place to live, all the different things that you have to do when you move to a new place. So how are things going so far on your end?
Yeah, definitely hitting the ground running for me. A touchdown and straight into work at the facility. I mean, getting to go in there every day is great. Amazing facility, great place to go to, and a great group of people to work with. Getting right into things with recruiting, right into things with, we've just this week had a couple of unofficial visits from players. So getting rolling with that, preparing for our workouts and practices starting in this coming week. And then with all that going on, also trying to find a place to live and find some good food to eat around town. So it's been a lot.
So tell me, so what is because you have been, your career path has taken you to a lot of different places, working with different teams, different coaches. Obviously basketball is a universal language, but there are obviously going to be also different things with different people. But what's your process for adjusting and adapting to a new place that you're working? How do you go through that process of learning about the team you're coming into, the coaching staff, all of those things to get yourself prepared and able to start, like you said, hit the ground running?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really trying to get a really good understanding of where the team's been, where the program's been, what we've achieved or why we haven't achieved certain things in previous year or previous seasons, trying to understand kind of where Coach Mack stands with his philosophy, trying to understand where Coach Pegues, Coach Fennell, they stand on different things and stuff, and really trying to get acclimated to what has been done there and everything that's been done there for things to have success at different times throughout the past few years and through a program's history, or if I'm entering in with another team through that team's history and stuff. So first, just really trying to see what has been done already and where the team's at, trying to really do an honest assessment of all the players on the team and what their abilities are and how they've been used. And then kind of once that foundation is laid down for my own personal knowledge of understanding that whole picture, all right, now starting to apply some critical thinking to the way forwards from there.
What is your for the basketball dorks out there like me? What sites and things do you rely on to try to learn about a team? What's that? Where do you get your information from when you're first starting out?
Well, I'm mostly just watching film on Synergy,
Okay.
on Synergy Sports. I mean, sometimes it's nice to Synergy Sports is great. At the same time, you see everything; it's all clipped up,
Mhm.
right? Which is awesome to be able to grab edits and put stuff together. At the same time, it's nice to be able to view just a game in a regular flow sometimes without the choppiness of one clip to the next. So also just finding a way to download a game and just watching it in full from beginning to end is nice to be able to see that too.
Okay, interesting. Well, let's talk about your career path. So you've had a fascinating career path that has taken you overseas, through the NBA in different ways, the NBA draft process. Now you're involved in the college game. But I know you've had experience in Europe, down under. I mean, it's been all over. So take us through your steps in your career and how they got you to Louisville.
Yeah, it's how long we got. It's a long journey. No, I mean, look, I've been basketball obsessed since 5. Wanted to coach since I was 11. All through high school, spent my time going on while I was playing high school ball, going to coaches clinics up and down California and kind of around the U.S. and stuff. And then once I finished high school, I went back and did a gap year back in New Zealand and got on with the New Zealand Breakers doing a coaching internship in the league back there and stuff. And that was kind of the first professional basketball coaching environment that I was ever in. And then came back here to the US and while doing school, started doing training just with individual players, doing player development just around the LA area. So working with some players from UCLA, from USC, just players in the city. And through that, got connected with an agency called BDA Sports, one of the bigger basketball agencies in the NBA and around the world for that matter. They got a really good international group too there. So was fortunate enough to get on with them and start training some of their players that they had me work with. Went off to Italy to go do school over there. And while I was there, got to do some scouting for Virtus Roma, the team over there, for a short time, and then ended up returning back to the U.S. for the 2011, I think it was 2011 pre-draft with Klay Thompson and Nikola Vucevic. And so that got things rolling with that one that kind of parlayed into working with some guys in the off season. One in particular was Andras Biedrins, and where I was sent to Latvia to work with him for about a month and a half over there, which was awesome. Just getting to hang out in Riga and be there and work with him daily. And while I was there, his assistant coach at the time, Keith Smart, with the Golden State Warriors, came over just to check on him and kind of hung out for about a week and a half, watched our workouts. Me and Keith would get dinner every night and stuff and just talk hoop. And so kind of developed a relationship with him during that time and a mutual respect. And then again, went back to business over the course of the next few months and stuff, working with players the next year, working with players. And then he ended up getting the head coaching job for the Sacramento Kings and ended up bringing me on for player development there with them. And so I did a year with player development with the Kings. The team got sold. So enter into the NBA after 23 years of since 5 years old. So I guess 18 years of dreaming of getting to that moment, and it was awesome opportunity, awesome experience. And then the business side of it hit, and team gets sold, new owner comes in, whole staff gets let go and moves on. Went back to Santa Barbara. Had a couple players that I was working with back in Santa Barbara. One of them, Patrick Patterson. I know he's a UK guy, so a bit of a bad name to say around this way. But he was with the Kings, obviously, and so Mike Malone, the new coach, came down and just to check in on Pat, and ended up seeing the workout and saying, "Hey, I want you in this organization still. We got to find a way to keep you in this and stuff." And so asked me to come on as an assistant coach with their G League team in Reno. So I did 2 years in Reno, and then ended up making a decision to leave there. I kind of had the itch to head coach, and so took a head coaching job back in the New Zealand League. Did that year, that season, awesome experience with that team. At the same time, started assistant coaching with the New Zealand national team since about 2015. So that's continued to this day. and then moved back from there. Got on with the Santa Cruz Warriors, the Golden State Warriors G League team. Great experience there, getting to see how Golden State does things and getting to be part of their training camps and being around for their playoff run. Was lucky enough to get a championship ring, which was pretty cool.
All right. I
being
didn't
there
know
that year.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I'll have to my cousin, my little cousins who are basketball obsessed in Louisiana, who are from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They have it. So I'm gonna have to get it off them and bring it around the facility one day. But so then I went from there to the Westchester Knicks, again through build relationships in this business, and basketball kind of takes you everywhere. And then the second year with Westchester, I ended up being moved up to be player development with the New York Knicks for the first year that David Fizdale was there as head coach. Again, Keith Smart had come on staff and stuff. Again, things kind of circle around in the basketball universe. And then left there, went to Melbourne United in the Australian League to coach with one of my best friends in the business, Dean Vickerman, the head coach of Melbourne United. And then COVID hit, pandemic hit, and world got flipped upside down a little bit, and ended up staying stateside for this last season, doing my pre-draft workouts as I normally do, and off-season workouts as I normally do in the summers. And here I am with the University of Louisville. And again, all along doing the stuff with New Zealand national team, which has been really influential.
Yeah. So when you were back here, correct me if I'm wrong, you were expecting to go back to Australia the next season. Is that correct? And then COVID just kind of delayed you, or?
Yeah, exactly. For multiple reasons of all sorts of different stuff of how COVID impacted that league, that team, the schedule. It just didn't make sense for me personally to go back there last year. And it was still an open door of like, hey, once we get through this kind of pandemic season, returning the next year. Ultimately, I've jumped on this opportunity with Louisville because it's a great opportunity, but that was something that we were still kind of talking about down the line potentially.
Did you ever think you would get into the college game because I know it's not exactly siloed, and we're seeing more and more hires like Mike Woodson and Juwan Howard come to the college level. And there have been plenty of coaches over the years who have made the jump in the opposite direction, but it still kind of feels like when you talk to guys who know people from the college game who went to the pros, they're like, man, they're just learning it on a totally different level now. It's just totally like the NBA is just because it's basketball all the time. I mean, you're able to really advance your knowledge. But did you ever think that you would go in the opposite direction and work in college at any point?
Yeah, I mean, again, I was really fortunate to get into the business of coaching at a really young age, but came into it rather pretty naive and innocent to understanding the world of coaching. And sometimes, I mean, one, just how transient it can be and how it can move you from one place to the next, and so much out of your control a lot of the time. And so while I had again, since 11, I had my attachments early on in life to saying like, I'm going to be an NBA head coach. And that is my world. And that's everything I'm tied to in this world. I would say pretty early on in my time in the professional coaching world. And within 3-4 years of that, probably around the Santa Cruz time, I kind of learned like, look, I got to reevaluate what am I attached to in my world of coaching, and ultimately that is coaching at a high level with a great group of people. And so that's really opened up. I've been really opened up to any amount of opportunities through the years. There's a level of, I guess, tactical play that I want to be able to coach to, that I wouldn't want to drop too far down a level. But ultimately, like, this is coaching at the University of Louisville is coaching an MBA program in college, and like being in a pressure-filled environment, the competitiveness that brings out in you and stuff, and like that's everything you could ask for. I know the most enjoyable coaching experience I've had in my life is coaching with the New Zealand national team, where you're bonded with a family. It means something deeply to you on a personal level of you're actually representing something that really means something to you. And every single game really, truly matters to try to go out there and compete and win, amidst certainly trying to develop your players along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think being in that environment and being in an environment too where there's a diverse style of play is a really exciting thing. You look at the ACC and you got all sorts of different styles of play all throughout the conference, let alone all throughout the NCAA college basketball. So, I mean, yeah, it's become something that I've absolutely been opened up to. Was fortunate enough that this opportunity came along, and certainly with the magnitude of a program like Louisville was something that was really exciting.
Yeah. Well, it is an interesting thing. And I know you've talked about it before about preparing for, Montenegro one day, and then like 3 days later you're playing Brazil, or, you've got to get ready for Greece. And then, a couple days later you're playing, I don't know, Australia. It's so different across the board. I feel like there are enough teams in the ACC, especially with the guys who have been there for a while, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, you're going to play Syracuse. You're going to play that 2-3 extended matchup zone. If you play Florida State, you're going to play the really heavy deny extended defense, man-to-man, trying to get up and down. You know what Carolina's going to do. Even with Hubert Davis, I think we all know that they're probably going to continue to do the Carolina way. Virginia. So you have all these mixes and matches of teams that'll give you plenty of homework to learn about different styles. I want to talk to you. You mentioned New Zealand, and that for a lot of people here who have internet sleuthing skills, that's where if you search for Ross McMains, that's where you're probably going to end up finding a lot of the stuff in terms of like concepts and principles that the teams that you're a part of like to have. And I think the curiosity will be, how does some of your beliefs and your ideas mesh with, obviously Chris Mack has been doing this for a while and has his beliefs, and Mike Pegues has his beliefs, and Cahill has his, and how you guys can kind of use a mind meld here in the off season with your fresh voice coming in. How would you describe, I guess, some of the principal like tenets or things that you, when you're involved on a coaching staff, like the offenses to have and how they operate?
Yeah, I mean, we just want to play an aggressive style of basketball. We want to be invested in every second of the shot clock and not waste a moment of that. And so if there's an opportunity to score at 28 seconds on the shot clock, we want our players attuned and awake and locked in and engaged to take advantage of that opportunity. There's an opportunity sitting there at 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. We want our players attuned to be able to do that. No different than we want them attuned at 12 on the clock. And helping our guys understand how to take advantage of every single moment of the clock and how we run, how we respond to gaining possession of the ball, the way we space, and the way we try to create an advantage. I think in different aspects of the clock is really important. And again, like every team that Coach Mack has ever had has been a high-level ball movement team, high-level execution team in the half court, has demonstrated tremendous toughness. And those are all things that we want to continue to be able to carry over. Right. And what we're looking to do here with this group is just add on the fact of really trying to invest at a high level in that early part of the clock also. Because in 2021 in modern basketball, execution is not just defined as being able to execute a half court set. It's being able to execute your style of play throughout 30 seconds of the shot clock. Right. And so trying to really bring that in. At the same time, like trying to learn our players and understand how that works for them and try to accentuate each of our guys' strengths.
Yeah, that's always the biggest thing. You got to fit the personnel to what you're trying to do. So that'll be fascinating to watch how you guys work together, and we'll see what comes of it. One thing that I think is interesting is you get the extra 6 seconds on the shot clock. Does that, does that change anything? It doesn't sound like that changes a whole lot for you and what you would like, and again, I know you were working under the assumption that Chris Mack obviously has all of the final say in whatever his team is going to be doing. He's the head coach, but for you knowing the 24-second shot clock versus the 30, how does that change?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still wrapping my head around it, to be honest. Still coming to grips with all of that, but I don't think it changes too much in the approach early in the clock. I mean, you get a few more chances. I mean, maybe it impacts I talk about shot threshold in terms of like what level type of quality of shot are you willing to stop running offense for and take, right? and so, I mean, obviously gives you a few more seconds available to search really a high quality shot threshold out, but at the same time, I think we can do that through pretty early in the clock and be able to find those opportunities a lot of the time. I think actually the one that I think if I get this right, hopefully I don't sound stupid if I get this rule wrong, but I'm I'm pretty sure on the offensive rebound reset goes to 20 seconds. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And so that one, I think that's an interesting one compared to the 14. I mean, you're still trying to search out, obviously, do we have an immediate putback? Do we have an immediate kick out three? Do we have an advantage off of that kick out where we can get the dominoes falling and get closeouts happening and stuff and get into drive and kick and find a good look? But if none of those are available, you're still left with a lot more time than typical 14 seconds that I'm used to dealing with and stuff. So I think that's an interesting one potentially.
All right, last couple things then for you. One is something that anybody who knows you and has talked about you in some facet or in the podcast that I've heard you on before, there's a lot of talk about terminology and making things digestible for athletes at any level. And obviously, if you're dealing with a national team, you're dealing with guys who are 28, 30 years old, who've been pros for a while versus maybe an 18 and 19-year-old who's still learning a lot more. But tell me about the terminology side of things. Dominoes. I know you mentioned the dominoes. We've heard about the golden snitch, the drills that you guys ran overseas with New Zealand. There's a lot of different little things that I think other coaches respect about you as being something that makes it digestible for players. Where does that come from? Why is that important, do you think, as a coach to be able to translate for players like that?
Yeah, shout out to whoever plastered my head on top of a Harry Potter body on a post. That was hilarious.
It was not me. That was not me.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, look, terminology is language. Language is as important of a thing as we can have. Yeah, I mean, and so I think when I was coaching with Taranaki, that year I went back and head coach there, we had a document called like Naki-ish, which was our Naki-ish was our language. And we had like a full little dictionary thing of like, this is how we speak these different terms and stuff. And so I think it's one, having a shared language that can have you communicate something that normally may require 10 words in one word. That makes things efficient, allows you to coach on the run in the game and in practice and in workouts, and be able to share that and be able to put an emphasis on certain bits of language. The other part that's important that I try to, where I can, with terminology, is try to find something that also brings about the visual of what we're trying to make happen. You know what I mean? And I think that's an important piece to it, where you can be creative with your terms on that stuff, like a term for like catching on the run, like versus closeout, that's a road runner. Right. And so like think about Roadrunner, you see those feet moving fast, the cartoon back in the day and stuff, and gives the players a little visual. It makes it a little bit easier it makes it stick a little bit more. That's all you're looking for. So really, whether it's just trying to find a shared language to be able to deliver statements and talk in a more efficient manner, but also finding a way to have visuals that connect and make the term stick. Obviously, terminology is really important.
Absolutely. Last thing then, so you've had a couple of weeks, obviously, prior to being here physically. You had some time over Zoom and phone calls and stuff, I'm sure, to try to start working with the staff. But now that you're in person, what would you sum up your summer expectations to be for this program, and how you guys are going to try to start working together as a coaching staff? What are you looking forward to for the next few months?
I think alignment of vision throughout the whole program, from coaches to players, to everyone in the basketball program. And like, that's number one alignment from me, with me stepping in and understanding everything that's been done at a high level in that program and what's been done for years that Coach Mack has brought to the table, especially like me coming to understand how things have been done defensively, how things have been done just in terms of like practice format, from a recruitment standpoint, our philosophy around that and stuff. So I think number one is just, I'm thinking about myself selfishly, is just playing catch up on that stuff and really getting aligned on that end. Number two, I mean, we're going to have an awesome opportunity here for 8 weeks to get to work with our players and really make an impression on them and try to program their minds to a style of play that we want to have, and be able to start at the granular level of how we develop players individually, but growing that towards how we play as a 5-man group on the floor.
All right. Well, good luck learning about the recruiting rules. That's probably, I imagine, like reading a medical journal. That's not something that I would want to have to do at any point in my life. So,
so many bylaws.
Yeah, there's a lot of bylaws.
Many bylaws.
Well, Ross, I appreciate your time. Welcome to Louisville, and you've been all over the world. I'm sure you'll like Louisville just as much as you've liked other places. So appreciate a couple minutes of your time, and I'm sure I'll be running into you here down the line.
Definitely. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.